Are you a busy parent looking for a well-rounded science curriculum for your teens, but with taking the load off of you and not adding something else to your plate? Well, then Apologia's self-paced courses might be exactly what you need. We've been using the Apologia's physical science now for my 3 teens for about a month now, and I wanted to come and share all of my first impressions, the things that we're loving and things that kind of surprised me about the curriculum that I wasn't expecting. So let's get started. The first thing I'm loving is how accessible this curriculum is to all learning styles. As you guys know, I have 6 kids with multiple learning abilities. With my 3 teens in particular, I have one who has severe dyslexia, high functioning autism, and auditory processing. I have one that is neurotypical, and then I have one with ADHD. So I have a great need for curriculum that is accessible to a lot of different styles and to different learners. And this has been exactly that. Let me explain. One thing that makes this incredibly accessible to all learners is the fact that they pre-teach information. This is actually something that is a well underutilized tool in the homeschooling world that I think would serve us well to learn from. With Apologia's self-paced course, each unit that you are learning actually has a little mini lesson, so to speak. It's a little bit of text as well as a video that will introduce the concepts that you're going to be learning about within that section. This is great for my kids as it gives them those hooks to hang the information on when they get to it later in the chapter. They kind of get that broad picture of where they're headed, and then they can dive deep into each of those topics once they get into the meat of the unit itself. This helps all learning styles to know where you're headed before you go there. But of course, if we are looking at different learning styles, we think of the traditional visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, and there is something here for everyone. Let's start out with the visual. For visual learners, you're going to find a lot of different charts and pictures that are going to help your child easily be able to understand and organize the information that they learn about. Plus, there is a whole plethora of educational videos all interwoven within the course. You don't have to click on links. You simply click on the video within the actual text, and you will be able to watch not only the science experiments being done in person, which has helped my kids to be more hands-on and be able to take more charge of doing their own science experiments, but it also shows different concepts, reteaching information in different ways and different methods than they're also reading it. And it gives them a lot of personal stories or illustrations that you don't necessarily get within the text. So there's a lot of additional information as well as good review of the material that they are reading as well. This visual basis is going to help your kids feel very strong in the material that they're covering and adapt to their specific learning need. As far as your auditory learners, they are going to really enjoy the audio sections of each of these lessons. So each lesson, you'll have a section that you are going to be reading, and at the top of that page, you can actually click to listen to the audio. I really enjoy this aspect as it makes it accessible for my kiddos with dyslexia, but it also makes it engaging for my kids who do better with listening. I encourage them to listen and to read along as they go, as that extra input just kind of helps solidify those neural pathways, but I really appreciate this approach and making it so accessible. And of course, when it comes to the kinesthetic aspect of the curriculum, there are lots and lots of hands-on experiments. This is what helps to solidify that learning, especially for my ADHD kiddo. He really loves being able to put into practice what he's learned, and that is the things that stick best with him. Not to mention the fact that they utilize the student journals. There's a lot of putting into your own words things that you have learned, and having to handwrite that out helps to solidify it as well. Speaking of the student journals, that brings me to the second thing I really love about this, is that it actually makes very big, complicated concepts very manageable and easy to access. I love this for my kids because truthfully, when they first got the books in the mail and they saw how thick they were, all of their comments was, this is going to take forever. This is going to be a lot. Apologia's self-paced course and all of their courses when they move into that middle school, high school level are going from having only 2 days of science lessons to having 4 days of science lessons. When they saw that and the size of the book, they were sure this was going to take forever. But the truth is, it actually doesn't take long at all. And everything's broken into bite-sized pieces so it doesn't overwhelm. My favorite part of this is the lesson plan at the beginning of the student journal. So at the beginning, you'll see everything is color-coded by unit. So each unit is its own color. And then each day has listed out exactly what you need to do for the course to be complete. It even has the check boxes there, which has been great for my kids to be able to track exactly where where they're at. At first, when I got into the program, I wasn't sure about the fact that it doesn't actually like remember the place where you were at. You have to go manually to that place, but it's actually been no issue whatsoever because of this checklist. They also even have a printable version for mom. So if you want to print out a copy, have it in your binder or wherever you like to keep your stuff so you can keep an idea of where your child is throughout the program or what they need to complete. You have access to that as well. Another thing they do to make big information very bite-sized and manageable is by highlighting their vocabulary words. So all throughout the curriculum, they introduce lots of different vocabulary words, and these will be things that will be on the test, and they're going to be things that they want them to memorize and to learn. And so because of that, they make it really manageable by making those bold, making sure that you take note of those. And then even within the student journals, they always try to get you to rewrite those definitions in your own words so that you're becoming really familiar with the material. I also love the fact that when they're going through the lessons, each page is very manageable. So even though the chapters can be quite thick and they might be going through several sections in one day, each page is very manageable and is just what you kind of need to see for that section instead of turning a section into multiple times of having to click to the next page. This keeps it a little bit easier for my kids to keep track. If they need to go through 3 sections a day, then they know they only have to click that next page 3 times. It just makes it a little bit easier to digest, and if you have to pause and come back to it later, it makes it easier to find your place. My kids have also enjoyed the fact that throughout the lessons on the computer, it prompts them when to write in their student journal. And for things like review questions, it has them write their answers in the student journal, and then it has a self-check button. Because this is not meant to be graded, it's to help ensure understanding, which is something I really appreciate with Apologia. And so they can actually go after they've written out their own answers and self-check themselves to make sure that they understood the concept well before moving on to the next section. So those are the things I loved, but what were some of the things that surprised me? Well, some of them were the fact that lab reports were going to be such a heavy emphasis. I mean, I guess it makes sense with our kids. They are either finishing at middle school or going into high school, and so that is naturally the time when you need to have more understanding on how to write formal lab reports instead of just writing basic observations. And I was a little intimidated by that when I first saw it. So in the student journal, you have like the sections they'll fill out during the lessons at the beginning, and then the second half of the book is for their lab reports. But what I appreciated about Apologia, even though I was surprised by this change in the curriculum, is that they really still keep it very bite-sized. So instead of just being like, write your lab report, they have instructions on how to write a lab report, and then they break it down into bite-sized pieces. My kids will have a much easier transition as they go into more formal lab report writing in later years. This is not going to be a new concept to them when they get into college or even later in high school, because they will have had it broken down for them in bite-sized pieces, and it helps to ease that transition. Another surprise might sound silly to some, but it's the fact that the platform that Apologia uses for their self-paced courses is called Canvas, not Canva, Canvas. Well, what's neat about Canvas is it's actually the platform that many of our local colleges use for their online classes. This means that for my kids, I want each of them to at least do a couple of classes dual enrollment, even if college is not their future plan. I think it's a great way to get them some exposure there. So the fact that they're already becoming familiar with the platform and how to use it and navigate it and get around and find announcements and the calendar and all of the things will actually be something that is sort of a surprise bonus benefit when it comes to them taking dual enrollment classes later in the high school years. The other thing that I guess surprised me, but didn't, I guess, is the testing. So in the Young Explorer series that we've been using previously, they obviously didn't have any tests. They had like, what do you remember sections, testing for understanding, but not actual formal tests. Moving into this middle school, high school curriculum, you are obviously going to have testing with that, and I think that's a great thing. I was surprised though, not just by the fact that there was testing, but by how well they really help kids to prepare for testing, because they really help get them ready for each and every test. They have things that they can practice and review over the concepts. They want you to practice that self-check as many times as you need so that you can feel confident going into the test. And then with the first 2 different units, they actually allow your student to take the test as many times as they need to. They can just take it over and over again, open book style if they would like, so that they can then take the highest grade from that testing, and that will be their grade. Now, that's not the way it stays for units 3 through the end, but for those, you get to take it twice, and the program will pick the highest grade from there. I like the fact that they do it this way because there's definitely a learning curve when it comes to getting tests from someone else, learning how to study well, learning how the questions are going to be formatted. Even the fact that it's done on the computer for some kids can be kind of confusing or a lot. So I love the fact that they give them lots of opportunity to get familiar with the testing material, with the study guides and everything before actually finalizing those grades in the first 2 units. And then after that, you have a little bit of wiggle room and flexibility of being able to take it that second time, but also encouraging them to really learn and focus and transition into better study habits. Apologia really thinks through a lot of these things when they put together these programs to make sure they're accessible to everyone, but also challenging you and preparing you for the future. If you want to learn more about all of Apologia's adaptations that they make and how adaptable they are for each and every learner, be sure to check out this video here.